Hello, I want to welcome all of you to the Grolier. My name is Carol Mankiti, and my husband was Ifani Mankiti, who bought the store maybe 17 years ago from Luisa Solano. He passed away almost 4 years ago, but he loved this store so much. He thought poetry was going to save the world among people. And that's why there's so many poets from all over the world. Their books are in the store. So we feel it's a very sacred place, and we're happy to have the poets that are here tonight. So enjoy yourself. Thank you. Oh, and James is our wonderful manager. We're happy to have James as our manager too. So it's a great, thank you, poets, for being here. We're happy to have you. Oh, and there's some people on Zoom as well. Yeah, that's fine.
Right. So reading first tonight is Timothy Liu. The poet Timothy Liu was born in 1965 in San Jose, California, to immigrant parents from mainland China. Described by Fanny Howe as a poet who, quote, writes out of an angry materialism, ill-fitting body disappointment at every turn, Liu's poetry explores identity, violence, sexuality, and the power of witness, and his works pay particular attention to formal constraints, such as syllabics. As Howe writes, he, quote, takes on his point of view wholeheartedly and compresses the consequences into phrases that echo and mimic each other, thereby increasing the sensation of claustrophobia and fever. His poems, in his own words, quote, seek to stage linguistic tropes and situations that have been largely left out of poetic discourse, thus releasing textual energies that our culture seeks to suppress. Liu's many accolades include the Pushcart Prize, the Open Book Beyond Margins Award, and Publishers Weekly 2004 Book of the Year Award, and others, and his works have been translated in a dozen languages. Liu is the author of 12 books of poetry, including Say Goodnight, Of Thee I Sing, and Vox Angelica, which won the 1992 Poetry Society of America's Norma Farber First Book Award. He was also the editor of Word of Mouth, an anthology of gay American poetry published in 2000. An intuitive reader of occult esoterica, including the tarot, the I Ching, and the Akashic records, Liu gives readings at Marbai in Woodstock and the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies in Rhinebeck, New York. His new book, Down Low and Low Down, Bedside Bottom Feeder Blues, is out from Barrow Street in 2023. Please welcome Timothy Liu.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kevin, Ed, also James. Thank you. Just going to read a few poems. This is the new book, Down Low and Low Down, Timothy Liu's Bedside Bottom Feeder Blues. This is a poem from my mother, who died 25 years ago. Intimacy. If my mother were alive, she'd want to know how it was my husband and I met. Would want to know what it meant to hook up on dating sites. What exactly an ass-hungry power top with a dick that won't quit looks like. And I would have to do my best to tell her exactly what I was looking for, because that's what intimacy is all about. Having spent a few decades flat on my back on a couch in a room papered over in neutral tones, testing out my faith in a talking cure as I got all gussied up for my meet cute that would outlast the years my mother had left on this earth. The deck she kept on shuffling right up to the end, a bit worn out, but complete, were it not for all the kings that went missing. And my dad died in September, he's 94, so this is for him. The fruit does not fall far from the tree. I thought so-and-so still loved me, or wanted to have sex with me, or was it my husband? Have been looking for anything mild to wild, had settled for. Was actually quite vanilla when the clothes came off. When he got off, that is. Truth be told, just wanted to get home to his wife and kiddos. Glad I was done with making babies. Been there, done that. Not without help, of course. I used to be careful, even selective. Some said finicky, others fickle, of what I was willing to take into my body, of whoever I'd let fuck me, and precisely which holes and in what order. Now every day pretty much a slut fest, a come hither what may, mask or no mask, vax or no vax. Even my mother has gotten in line. The ghost of my mother, that is, before the metastatic cancer devoured the lining of her stomach, her uterus. Such appetite, we say. Each week, Dad tells me what he's having for breakfast. Right then and there, a fried egg, avocado on toast. Doesn't matter if it's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. Always seem to end up in my father's head, his bed. The world imagined is the ultimate good. Unending pillow talk, things we've never spoken about. Morning wood, for example. His, mine, such appetite, so voracious and suddenly. The grave cave now has us in its monstrous jaws. The fruit does not fall far from the tree. Ready or not, ready to eat. So my dad died in September. My therapist of 12 years died in November. My father-in-law died in March in Charlestown. So the memorial for him is on Saturday. And then my mentor, Rachel Pollack, died on Good Friday. And so it's been a really tough time. And I appreciate very much people who've they've kept on showing up. And so this is for my friend, Dave. Last Christmas. Your best friend had brain cancer and would have married you, but she knew that she couldn't turn you straight. The best of us have tried, she laughed. This was during the holiday season. We had been driving around in your brand new Jetta, the one the insurance company replaced after someone rear-ended you in front of the country fair. A teen who said he was going 15 max when it was more like 45, you said. Late on your payments in the pre-pandemic, your gap insurance expiring, a mistake anyone could make. Somehow, the money came through. Timing is everything. And this was the car we were cruising around in, snaking through subdivisions and sprawl on the outskirts of Rhinebeck, looking for icicle lights hung up in the eaves and neon blue menorahs burning on the sills. Not too many decorations out this time of year, Susan said, and she was right. Religious fervor at an all-time low if we were to judge by the kilowatts per hour this community had been consuming. We were driving around with Susan instead of making love, is what I thought, riding alone in the back seat. I wasn't the one who was dying, was I? 2 hours is a long time to be driving around after sundown, unless you knew this might be the last time we would be together. And it was. So many women want to marry him, Susan tells me. Says she woke up from a dream last night where doctors told her that her cancer was a joke. Susan laughs. Please, someone tell us this is all a joke. One house has really overdone it this year. Santa in a sleigh drawn by a dozen reindeer, all lit up, life-size. Should we get out or keep driving? How can we manage to steal that baby from its manger without leaving tracks in the snow? One moment for hijinks, one moment for shenanigans, and for all we know, this might only be a dream. Blaring on the radio, Jose James, Diane Reeves. Surely we've heard them all before back in Susan's room where we divided the spoils. Vodka ice cubes melting in her sippy cup, turquoise blue American Spirit stashed in a box of Depends. I was watching you stringing up Christmas lights on the wall behind Susan's bed. I was admiring the few ornaments glinting on a tabletop tree, an enormous tenderness in something so small. That was the last time I saw Susan. Back at the car outside, you held the front door open for me, my turn to get in. I turned and thanked you for including me and said, this is not how I imagined we would be spending the evening. Something in you broke, misheard, I don't know, something. And you said, you were the one who invited yourself to tag along. I never asked for this. Can't stand to have any more disappointments in my life. He drove off in a huff, trail of exhaust glowing red on the darkest night of the year. I stood there, stranded, with my back to a nursing home hemmed in by rolling hills, moonlight on the snow, so bright, so clear. And I'll end with this. This is for my beloved who is trying to get clean from alcohol. Roscoe, New York. It was unplanned. All afternoon, was it Justin Thoreau who kept texting her from Monticello? But all she wanted was to go fly fishing in the river, maybe catch some trout, something she and her ex used to love doing before he threw her down in the entry hall and stomped on her collarbone with his work boots, jealous and high on coke because she didn't like his wood carving enough. My friend who dropped more than $100K to fix up his place. Dirty money is how her ex put it. His way of showing gratitude. Why can't I get over him? She asked, while I turned over more cards for her week after week. Her shoulder still killing her when she let out some line, catching only tiny buttes she had to throw back. Feeling some accomplishment as she stood up to her breasts in muddy waters, careful not to soak her waders and lose her balance. while a trout the size of a salmon rolled over next to her, splashing her with his tail, with no one around to see or hear it. Iggy Pop's I Want to Be Your Dog queued up on her playlist. James Blood Ulmer jamming on a tune Skip James once sang. My friend who grows the sweetest pears in the Hudson Valley. Hard green ones hitting the ground at regular intervals with a thud before they soften. The ones she lets me take home to watch them yellow slowly on a plate exported from China from another century on a screened-in porch. Sweetest flesh I've ever sunk my teeth into. All of it unplanned when she met up with some locals who drew her a map, showing her where the best and most secret fishing spots are. A treasure map that she texted to my phone. Same phone that I take a selfie with a man whose middle name I've kept to myself. So much hidden in a simple name, and why I've taken so much pleasure filling his mouth with an incomparable sticky sweetness. Neither my friend nor all the locals who fish around here have any fucking clue. Thank you. All right, so I have the pleasure to introduce both Kevin McLellan and Ed Madden. Which is reading first? Ed is reading first. So this is his book, A Pooka in Arkansas, and selected for the Hilary Tham Capital Collection from WordWorks in Washington, D.C. And you know, it's rare to get asked to judge a book prize, and it's even more rare to find two manuscripts that were incredible and dying to be in the world. And so both authors are here tonight. And what I'd like to do is actually, I've never done this. I'm just going to read the blurb that I spent hours on. And I kind of made them little twins because they both open with the words, this book. And it kind of makes them little siblings. So this is for Ed Madden's A Pooka in Arkansas. This book redeems the curse of where and what we are born into by conjuring spells, bestial, animistic. The poet strutting around like a mythic centaur, or if you like, a domestic ass. This book flies in the face of making the rough places plain and the crooked straight. You won't have to have grown up queer in the deep rural South to be touched by the lyrical antics that go on here. This alternative gospel spreading its haunches till every knee bow, every tongue confess. This chorus of hallelujah inflected, infected by its own down and dirty twang. Please welcome Ed Madden.
I love that blurb. So first I should say really quickly what a pooka is, just in case. A pooka is an Irish shapeshifter. It's neither good nor evil, it's just a trickster. Shows up as a horse, a dog, an eagle, anything. It will show up at your house and do all your chores unless you ask it to, and then it will never show up again. It pisses on the blackberries at the end of the summer because the blackberries are his at that point, not yours. And mostly it's known for encountering you on a road at night and taking you someplace you've never been. When I was a young animal, When I was a young animal, I learned by watching others, my father and the other men, my mother closing the door. The field smelled like a field. I didn't know that then. I could smell my young uncle on his hand-me-down shirts and pants, the buckskin coat with fringed sleeves, smell my grandmother's home when I tugged them on. On the farm, we were a pack, the other cubs and me, roaming the dirt roads and fields, slinging clods at cars and one another, pissing on anything into the fire they built behind the shop to burn the trash, the small cans exploding in the flames. We were sunburnt, chigger-bit. Our mothers checked our skin for ringworm and ticks. I was a young animal. I learned by watching others. This one's called Fairy Tale, and I should just say there are a number of fairy tales in the book. Some of them actual retold fairy tales and some just shit I make up. So this one's Fairy Tale. What he wore that day was darkness, a silver shimmer of teeth, spit threading his words, the sour of dried sweat and dog fennel and yellow leaves, and nothing like what they had said, though we'd heard the story before, how he lingered and where the door where little boys disappeared, pull the bobbin and the latch will go up. And there he was, watching me, all loose and lizardy and worn out jeans, his lean and length, the silvery trees, a path fizzling out and animal trails, just instinct and smell, and me no longer a boy. He stood, said nothing, bog moist and rust worn, a bolt and a grin, thick and itchy, and it was there and then, and wind on bare skin, neck bristle and stiffen, red shirt on a limb, a way to make do, and something or someone to sink your teeth into. There are a few poems about meeting the pooka. I'm reading one of them. This one's called Instructions on Meeting the Pooka, number 2. There is never only one wolf. You are no longer a child. You are no longer a boy or a girl. The forest is where, the old road is where, in the dark you are only flesh. In the absence of light, touch, ripple of muscle, hide, fur, spurs. In the absence of light, scent of piss, the stiff pong of sweat. Becoming is always other than filiation. There is never only one wolf. In the absence of light, sound, a throat raw with want. In the absence of light, tongue, swallow what you don't yet know. The boy will not come back the same. The boy will not come back. Go outside, close the door. Fairy tale. Trees lift into the mist, lift above the splatter of snow, that slash of white horizon. The woods are quiet, the sky is snow, the sky sifts through thin limbs. Some god has slung the moon down, splashing viscid light across it all. No one is coming for you, no one. Fairy tale. What you thought was a wolf was not a wolf. It was your father, mother, brother. You did not remember what big teeth they had, what claws. When your father died, the wolf was at the door ready. The wolf wanted you. The wolf wanted you to love what you couldn't have. The wolf made you beg. The wolf made you hard. The wolf said, good boy. The wolf said nothing. What you thought was a wolf was not a wolf. The wolf was a darkness beyond the fence. Once there was a boy who left his door unlocked to ask you to bring a friend and hold him down. You did this. Later, after it was over, he thanked you. Later, a year or so after, you heard he died, a heart attack, and no one found him for days. What you thought was a wolf was not a wolf. The wolf is in the mirror. The wolf is at the door is unlocked. The wolf is a man sleeping, surrounded by flowers. He smells better than you remember. If you kiss the wolf, he will wake up. Psalm. There are a couple of psalms in the book too. They're just called psalm. This one though, I like writing poems where things that are part of my consciousness because they were text I learned as a kid. So like the 23rd Psalm, I like taking them and trying to write a poem that keeps the images and the syntax and the cadences, but does something completely different. So you know the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me to beside still waters, all that. So Psalm. Tim is my therapist. I'm learning to trust him. He motions me to the green sofa. There's always bottled water on the table. He leads me to talk about things I don't want to talk about. If I make my way to the top of the dark stairs, he makes a space for talking and for not talking. Sometimes the room gets crowded. My dead father, my distant mother, all those messages from my brother I can pull up right there on my phone. In their presence, he asks, what would happen if you stopped doing your family's work of shaming you? That question follows me the rest of the day. Not the one. I am not the son you wanted. I am not the brother you wanted. I am not a birthday on the calendar. I am not a photo on your wall. I am not a postcard you will answer. I am not listed in your phone. I am not on the right side. I am not in the pulpit. I am not in the pew. I am not how you imagined it would go. I am not a story you can tell. I am not the latest news. I am not who you thought I was. I'm not the way it should be. I'm not the moral of the story. I'm not riddled with guilt. I'm not covered in sores. I'm not unaware of the irony. I'm not the difference between then and now. I am not in your Venn diagram. I am not a good fit. I am not good. I am not good enough. I am not at the wedding. I am not dearly beloved. I am not the circle of life. I am not an uncle. I am not a place at the table. I am not a vase of flowers. I am not a mylar balloon. I am not just driving through. I am not just stopping by. I'm not around much. I'm not someone you asked to stay, though you did once so I could help. I'm not trying to earn my place. I'm not obedient. I'm not telling you what you want to hear. For years, I was a folded note in my father's wallet that he didn't know whether to send, and then he sent it. I'm not responding to that last text message you sent over a year ago. I'm not someone who writes home anymore. I'm not someone who goes home anymore. I'm not stuck in the past. I'm not letting go of the past. I'm not very rational about this. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not one of those or one of them. I'm not one of us. I'm not one of you. I'm not handsome, I'm not wholesome, I'm not holy, I'm not coming home. I'm going to read one more poem. This is the title poem of the book. And it's actually one that I wrote. My last book was about taking care of my father when he was dying of pancreatic cancer. And I kept writing about my father after that book was done. And this is one of the poems I wrote. And the pooka showed up out of nowhere. And so this was the poem that is the title poem of the book. And thank you, James, and thank you to Groliers, and thank you, Kevin and Timothy. This is a lovely, lovely thing. And thank you all for being here. A pooka in Arkansas. My dad was dying. He had been dying for weeks. I went for a walk down the old road beside the family home, the sun declining in the distant trees. Be careful, my mother said. There are wolves in the fields. She said she had seen the tracks. I used the walk to phone my love back home. The man they didn't know refused to know, a name they never used. The nearest field was fringed with what the combines left behind of last year's harvest, threaded now with insects and weeds. Tractors would plow it all down soon enough, and death would be here too soon. On the road ahead, a small dog trotted just beyond me. The wind picked up. I tucked my phone away. No one headed out or home. No one on the road, just the dog. It paused, looked back as if to ask, how far do you think we'll go tonight? Thank you.
So great to hear your voice, Ed. You know, it's like those poems have only lived on the page for me. It's nice to hear your music and your rhythms, the spaces between the sounds. All right, so this is Kevin McLellan, and his book is In Other Words, You. And, you know, I found out today he grew up in New Hampshire, but when I was reading this manuscript, I just felt so much of the Bay Area in this book, and that's where I grew up. And so he definitely faked me out. He like you got your legit West. This book traffics in the second person. These queer meditations are both directly addressed to and overheard by a beloved you. Self, other, reader conjoined in a dance of enjambed vocables, a syntactic pas de deux of monastiques and couplets punctuated by fragmentary prose epistles. We are reminded of the demands that the libido makes, the joys of rote habits ruptured by the new. All of it backed up by an 80s soundtrack pulsing hard out of the Castro all the way to the UK. So fasten your seatbelts. The you left with will not be the same you upon return. Kevin McLellan.
Thank you, Grolier. Oh. Thank you, James. And thank you, Grolier, and thank you, Timothy and Ed. Sorry, no worries. Where do I begin? I am in this place right now where I am feeling incredibly radical. I don't know if it's the times that we're in, or if it is, I feel as if I have returned to my 34-year-old self, in which a medical trauma happened and an HIV diagnosis. And it's as if I am resuming where I left off at age 34, like now. So there is a intense liberation that I'm feeling, which is not necessarily in agreement with the time, but also I think is sort of contributing to this radical feeling that I have. And this became actually I became aware of this in South Carolina, Ed, when I was visiting you, how it wasn't just the environment there, but I think it just sort of a realization happened, like I have changed. But in some ways I haven't changed at all. So anyway, I'm telling you this because I think that is where this book allowed me to arrive too. So here we go. What you need to know is that there are two strains of poem. Well, there are three strains of poems, but I'm only going to read two. There are these slash poems, which either are 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 form, and the slashes are interruptive. So the 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 keeps the reader sort of unsteady, and as do the slashes. And then there are also these hyphenated words that words that I've put together that are not real words, but I've created words. So there's a lot of interruptive qualities that happen within the text. So you may not necessarily experience that while I'm reading them. And then the other strain of poem that I'm going to read are the Dear You poems. So the first poem in the book is called A Storm. Tired of, tired by, your here fuse shortening, by no means explosive, nor in need of a voice condom. Meanwhile, elsewhere, you're not unlike a ballast. I guess the thing is that this is the first poem, and that this book was selected. I don't know, there's something about that was very risky, I think, for a first poem. Anyway, dialectical. A wheel in you stopped turning, death a caught word, your eyes, a window. Clouds wait for the first spring thunderstorm to clear the palate. Can't decide if you'll stay indoors. Seems premature to imagine the parsley missing ground. Summer's either a portal or a container. Yes, clouds. A turning word caught in the wheel. Looks you in the eye. I used to really plan out what I'm going to read, and this is a part of my radical stuff. I'm just sort of like, no, I'm going to read what I feel like reading at the moment. So that's what I'm doing. Demarcate. When your opening sentence is a flutter, you apostrophe, or hyphenate, or gerund, ing to a finger. When receptivity, the appearance of a certain ringing up. Yes, when desire is on the brink, your hand between and not close enough. Intrinsic. The present will break down easily, will feed a memory landfill. You consider the torso's pulse points as you walk onto oncoming traffic. The language of almost. Almost aligns with all other instances. In your mind, these instances create an irregular perforation. There must be more to you than a dotted fault line. Must stop focusing on pairs, torsos, pairs of torsos. You see a shadow, yes. You're hardwired to your phantom, yet you know the railroad will continue to muscle the people and those vile portmanteaus. License plate number. Self-assured in denim cutoffs, white tee, Doc Martens, approaching the Castro. From behind you, a car slows, pulls into a shallow drive. Someone says something. You turn, face 4 teens in red jackets. Out the open window, the driver asks, "Do you like it up the ass?" You ignore him. Must continue walking. From behind, hear the swerving, the car gunning at you. Between a tap room and a blue house, an alley. You up a chain link fence. The 4-door backs up. With all speed, the smell of burnt tires. Out of nowhere, a mannish bartender appears, asks if you're okay, hands you a book of matches. On the inside flap, the handwriting, the sequence of numbers and letters. You keep seeing the embroidery, the backside of red. Okay, so this is evidence to my being pre-34 years old. This is autobiographical. Being carried on a litter by 2 shirtless bodybuilders to justify my love at the cargo club. Dear you, it rained that afternoon, like most others, and all the genuflecting prairie dogs the dogs noticed. I was a prairie dog, now a dog. But now a prairie dog. Furthermore, good life. Dear you, released in late '88 in the UK, where I studied distance. But this song is about my spell in San Francisco. I digress. Rimbaud, who used exclamation points in his first lines, and I believe well before syphilis. But how many episodes between the last time and his demise? Back in San Francisco and a hate crime in the Castro. Perhaps they sensed the vulnerability my father caused. Near the corner of 18th, where I, with 2 other young gays, likely dead now, were promoting The Box, a venue for dancing L's, G's, and B's. This song blaring as I pulsed innocence all before. Dog-eared, the brain sigh, mid-sentence, and process of migrating to the non-paper world, a bouquet of disparate sighs after a crowd of a few teenagers, the timbre of their laughing voices, a foreign ditty. Can't go back to the old fiction of the scarecrow mocking you. Must change your course. Okay, okay, you are okay. After learning, dear you, bought the CD at Sonic Boom. After I looked for salmon, Chinook. Instead saw apparitions of them ghosting the ladders, then flippered pinball. I passed on the sensory deprivation tank, and the museum was closed. When is me? Sorry about all the questions here. Later I write the rock, water molecules. The body's always different. Just a couple more. Listening to Max Richter's The Departure on repeat. Dear you, I overheard the botanist say to high schoolers at the public gardens, look behind the flower for the swollen base. It took my breath away, and a young woman in the periphery of her peers noticed. She continued to look without it feeling like a stare, as if I was standing in shallow quicksand. I didn't feel shame at first, then walked away and only looked back once. I imagined myself just before out of sight. Furthermore, under pressure, dear you, we are all definitions of record and recording. I might even be human. Would you like to accompany me for a tahini brown butter donut after a brisk walk at Mount Auburn's? Or perhaps a cheese and pickle sandwich with some warm broth and a thermos we share, and a potter's field on the other side of the state? Please remember we have yet to meet. And just two more, concerning the storm. That the wind won't put the door back, that the door was a flap, that it won't leave you content, that you're forced to stay indoors, that you're seen as a sad clerk, that you sell used bird cages, poems too, that the flea market is closed, that you want to know there's more to this than body, that perhaps they're right after all, that you decided to not leave during the storm, that the storm began when you began. Listening to the Be Good Tanyas on Grassy Hill Radio. Dear you, I'd like to give you flowers. Perhaps you'll invite me for Greek-style frozen yogurt. The frozen log kind. The kind that is either chocolate or vanilla and you add something. Almonds? But it is cold today. I must wait for a day that reaches. Too late for lilacs, though. I do hope that you are well. But if you are not, I can bring chocolate-covered almonds. Or roses. Or make rose water for you. It's dusk. I am not sure if I understand the consequence. You know, dying alone. Too much silence already. So it doesn't matter what radio station, as long as there are lyrics. Thank you guys for listening.
Just have one more round of applause for the poets. Thank you guys all for coming out tonight. We have these books for sale up at the front, and if everyone could please put their chairs against the back wall, that would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, you were. Well, I was wondering about it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes.
Thank you. You did a good job.
Thank you so much. Not very long. Yeah. So, that's about, yeah. Try to remember. Okay, that's about it.
Let's figure back. Yeah. Thank you.
It's like 3/4 looking for
So this time, okay, my friends.
Oh.
I truly do believe that I am the one I have necessarily work with the next.
No, Richardson, what do you have to work with?
You signed it.
Yeah.
So here it is.
That's only sort of brick and mortar bookstores. Well, edited by.
How did you know that? Oh, shit. Oh my God.
What do you think? Want to go for dinner? You need to. Let's skip along.
My husband's twin is actually happening.
I figured, but I just wanted to make sure you were welcome there. It's in Somerville, it's right on the line with Cambridge, it's in the ground here.
Yeah.
All the parents are here with.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yes, pre-graduation time, so they're. It's the vibe, I like the vibe. It's okay when the kids are here, when the parents and the kids are here, it's someone's good. And they kind of wait.
Late last year.
They have great drinks. So music's the vibe there is amazing. You've been there? So, really?
We've talked about it a lot.
Oh.
Where there was a pandemic, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, there's that. No, but look, oh, yeah, there's when I was.
And then we were gonna go, so we had to close that day.
Yeah, it was a Monday, yeah. Yeah, and by the way, I was no longer.
Oh.
They closed.
Really?
Yeah. I know.
Can you keep up? It's good to see you, Tom. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry to hear all you're going through. Okay.
And let us know when you're in town.
Yeah.
You like to have fun? Well, not this one. Oh, yeah.
In my own way. What you mean by that, Mr. Lou? We'll have to discuss that later. I guess it's true though. I can't deny it.
Yes. I said if I'm not.
Yeah, fine.
I'm going back. Slide.
It's just, you already know.
Yeah. And Jane. Can you join us, Brian?
I try.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Where do you guys go? We gotta get a photo.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll let you know that it's not allowed.
Yeah, we did. This is not orders. Are you? Yeah, great.
I know, it's awesome. Oh, did you take that?
Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, I'm going. Good to meet you. You right?
I do, in fact, yeah, I do.
Very good. Okay.
Were you one of the readers?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm sorry that I missed it. I actually need to put on these great readings, but now I'm working.
I'll read you one, come on. I'll do your first reading.
Absolutely, I would love that. Absolutely.
Can you repeat that? What?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry. Listening to Max Richter's departure from here you go. At the front of the bottom is saying high school leaves. Behind the flower. It took my breath away. When you young woman, the bird here. Need to live to house it in my chair. So I was standing I should step down first and walk away. Only 5 once. I imagine myself just before I was. Yeah, I did think that.
What about you? Next yeah, he's very. Yeah, I mean, well, he's also I'm sorry, we're too excited about that.
You look like Santa Claus. It's a little you're young, Santa Claus. It's true. It's like you guys want to. First thing I realize it.
No. When you and the right.
Yeah.
To.
Oh, we have. What's the signing going on still? Okay.
Great.
Great, this has been nice also.
Can I say something?
You can say whatever. He's actually, he's an Episcopal priest who, I think a lot of his work would really, a lot of your work would really help me. He grew up in Florida and went to like a really evangelical college and in the process of their mother. Religious soul searching.
Gotcha.
I just truly would say a great book for you.